Welcome to another episode of Searching for McGuffin with your host, George.
Gabe.
And Link.
Where are they?
We didn't go out of our way to really schedule this week's episode. That's not true. We've been kind of looking for an opportunity to have a one-on-one conversation, you and I.
Sure.
Yeah. For our listeners who aren't watching the video, I'm wearing my Legend of Zelda shirt, which is why I said Link. You see what I did there? But he's not here. He's not physically here.
Keep forgetting that
And Dan
people just aren't watching us all the time.
Yeah. Some people are not watching. They're listening. And also, we've gotten your emails. People still write emails?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. We've gotten your emails. We've gotten your DMs. Okay, please stop harassing our social media director. But for those of you with earnest questions about if our producer still works here, rest assured, he still edits the show at 1 to 2 o'clock in the morning, right before it launches at 7 a.m.
Yeah, Dan is just a man with
A
so
plan.
much on his docket. And I commend him for taking on extracurriculars and everything that he's got going on.
Extracurriculars, is he in intramural sports or something? What?
No, I would classify this as extracurricular.
Oh, okay. This is the extracurricular.
These are the intramural sports.
Oh, this is intramural sports. You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Intramurals is between people in the same institution, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is it called? Interscholastic, I believe, is the term for between two different schools.
Really?
Yeah. I know because we were rewriting a part of a handbook, and we're like, this is so stupid. Interscholastic, this word doesn't make sense. And then we looked at it, we're like, oh, it does make sense. Let's write it back into the handbook. We just eliminated. Because it was if you're on suspension or probation, you're not allowed to participate in interscholastic. And we're like, you can't participate in school in academic activities?
Yeah.
That's stupid. And then we looked it up and we're like, oh, it just means between schools.
No, I remember. Not that it has really anything to do with that.
Today's episode, nothing really has anything to do with it.
I remember when I went to the school you teach at, we had to get eligibility forms signed.
Yeah.
If you're not doing too hot in
Yeah,
a
they
class,
still do that.
They still do it?
Yeah, they still do it.
People still forge
The coaches that care. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, all our coaches care. Forget some of them. Listen.
And I just remember every week it was a game time decision for me whether I was going to be able to play because of either one class or something. Man, sports are weird.
Sports are weird. School's weird too.
School sports are weird.
And I think just life in general is kind of weird. Speaking of sports, we saw recently a sports movie, and I think it was just you and me actually, right?
And your wife
and my wife, yeah, but she's not on the show, so
Not
I
yet.
kind of meant in the hosts. Yeah, I meant us who are usually in these conversations weekly, even though we do have others who come in and out. But you and I went to go watch Creed 3, right? And that's not what today's episode is about, but it kind of informed, right, what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm a big fan of the Creed movies.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a big fan of most of the Rocky movies.
I'm sorry, most?
Yeah.
There's Rocky 1 through 4, and then Balboa.
Okay, we don't talk about the one in between. That's the one.
There is no one in between.
Yeah, so I can't really say all.
I guess you can't. Whatever. Tommy the Machine Gun.
What's your ranking of the Rocky movies? Not including Creed yet.
Oh, not including Creed. So just Rocky. I mean, Rocky 1.
I guess we could include Creed. Whatever. Go ahead.
No. That's it. You said no. So there's no going back. Rocky 1 is the best, right? Rocky 4 is the coolest to me because it ended communism, right? So I think it's the second best. Then, all right, this is going to be weird because I know this isn't the order of the best ones, but they're the order the ones that I relate to.
Yeah.
Balboa gave me a newfound appreciation of the entire series. So sometimes it's a completely ridiculous film, but it really breathed new life in the franchise. I don't think we'd have the Creed movies if it wasn't for Balboa. So Balboa's my third favorite. And then I think Rocky 2, because I like Rocky 2 and it's really good. But him winning, kind of that's where the series needs to go. But it's the antithesis of what makes Rocky 1 good.
Yeah.
And there's always the ain't gonna be no rematch. And then 5 seconds into 2, when's the rematch? We're doing the rematch. And then I have a really warm place for Rocky 3.
I really like Rocky 3.
Yeah, because of Hogan and Mr. T. That's why I like it. Hogan literally throws Thunder Lips is his name in the film. He throws Rocky out of the ring. I love that movie, but like, I guess it's the weakest one, if you can say that. But I love all of them. I love all of them. Like for me, it's the characters. They're almost like superhero movies. Like, Ivan Drago is why 4 is so good, you know, and Clubber Lang and Thunder Lips is why I like 3. And
I liked 3 because they I just like the dynamic between Apollo and Rocky.
Yeah.
And them training, and then also in 4 as well.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Well, that's why I like 4 because it has that dynamic as well.
Yeah, no, 1 and 4. I think we have the same top 2. Yeah. I think I have to watch Balboa again.
Yeah.
1 and 4, and then I think 2 is probably right in third place for me.
What I love about 3 too is that it goes back to like Rocky 1, where in Rocky 1 the big twist that makes it great is that Rocky doesn't win.
Yeah.
Like Rocky loses the title right away in 3, and that's like, okay, here's another bold choice. We're back to bold choices.
Yeah, I guess that was also something that we didn't see in. Well, I guess spoilers for Creed, by the way.
Yeah, light, brief spoilers.
In any of the Creed movies, he doesn't lose except for that first one.
Yeah, the first one, which is why I love the first one, because the first one's like, oh look, it's like,
well, the first one's the best one.
Yeah, clearly,
the first one is the best one
because it's as we've established earlier. We had questions before, but it's the only one directed by Coogler, right? Yeah. Ryan Coogler. He did not direct Creed 2, even though I think I made that mistake earlier, and you guys corrected me.
I think he's still like on the writing team.
Yeah. He's definitely, and he's producing, but the direction is just next level on the first one. Plus, just the concept. You know, like they had a concept in place, you know, and then just writing new chapters. That's great too, but it's just like, I don't think they knew where they were going with 2 and 3. Not that that's a bad thing, but like, you know, that like first out the door, you've got a tight concept and you know exactly what you're gonna do with it.
Yeah, I actually really like Creed 2.
I do actually like Creed 2.
I really enjoy Creed 2.
Yeah, I liked it better than Wreck-It Ralph 2, which was the other movie I saw that night.
No, I think I mean, obviously the stuff with, I don't know, I'm a sucker for that stuff, man. Like legacy sequels, I guess, done right.
Yeah,
I'm a sucker for that.
Type anyone who listens to the show knows that you're a sucker for legacy sequels.
Like,
the fact that I saw Top Gun on the splash page for Paramount Plus, and I was like, oh, this is why he paid it for another year, because they got Top Gun Maverick.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, even the reason that I usually get it for the Champions League, I was like, nah, it's just because they have Top Gun.
That's right. Even though you own it already.
I'm paying
$120 a year. Yeah.
Well, I paid more, didn't I?
No. I'm telling you, they cut, like, you re-upped, but it wasn't time for you to re-up yet. So they dropped the price right in time for it to, when they charge you the new price.
Thanks, Paramount.
Yeah, thanks.
They heard me talking about Top Gun all this time.
Thanks, Paramount, for cannibalizing the Showtime business also, into your Paramount Plus.
Random thought. Also, you suck, Paramount, for not having the rights to Yellowstone.
That was such a high and low.
Having every other Yellowstone sequel, but not having Yellowstone show.
What's that about? Luckily, we have, what is it? Peacock, yeah.
But when I caught up to season 5, which is the current season, it's on the Paramount Network.
Yeah, I heard about that. Plus. Yeah, you can't watch that. Yeah.
So I ended up just watching it on Hulu.
Oh, okay. They have it on Hulu.
On demand. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's good, because I thought it was like we literally had to wait for the whole season to be over.
Ads.
No.
Dude, I'm not gonna lie, and this may sound like, you know, first world problems.
Even if you have live TV, like premium ad free, that's it's okay.
I cannot stand ads.
No,
I really can't.
I'll pay anything. Well, that's a lie. Okay, so don't get the wrong idea, media companies. I will not pay anything to get rid of ads. I'll pay anything reasonable, and once you pass that, I will just drop your service.
Yeah,
because I will never go down to an ad-supported tier. I'll just stop using your service.
Yeah.
Ads.
Anyways, back to
Speaking of which, this episode is sponsored by. No, I don't
know. Speaking of ads,
this is a great conversation we're having. But do you know you can get meat delivered straight to your door?
A door. It's a good thing you said door.
Yeah. With no hassle. It'll be a little lukewarm, but I'm sure it'll be fine. Meatatyourdoor.com.
It's a great business.
That is a good. I mean, you know exactly what you're getting. Meat at your door. There's no question about it. I forgot where were we going with this?
I don't know. You were talking about beating meat.
No, I was not. I was talking about handing meat to you. That's not much better. Um, Creed is a jump forward in for the Rocky series and for the Creed series. I don't know if it's a jump forward for the Rocky series because this is not a spoiler, but Rocky's not in it. So
Creed 3?
yeah, Creed 3. It's not really it's no longer a Rocky film, which was interesting. Did you hear why he wasn't on it?
Do you know?
Yeah,
Oh, I don't know.
He said, according to Sylvester Stallone, said that they were going in a much more darker, grittier direction, and he felt like there wasn't room for him in the film. That he's kind of more hopeful he used like a negative word to describe his perspective, like almost like it wasn't sappy, but something like that, like not optimistic, but I don't remember, but something along those lines.
They were gonna kill him.
You think so?
They were gonna kill Rocky, and Balboa's and Sylvester Stallone's like, nah.
But Rocky doesn't die.
But it is
Rocky beats cancer.
It's weird, man. It's weird not having him, like,
Yeah,
and not really addressing
and not addressing it. That's the worst part. Yeah,
like it is weird, and it was like it's strange because I do think like it's fine, you know.
Yeah.
If they want to go in a different direction, not necessarily have him in it, okay. But at least like give me something more than just whatever we got.
Yeah, it feels like the character's getting the cold shoulder. And I'm starting to feel like there's antagonism there in real life, which I know nothing about.
Yeah.
Like, but the movie makes me feel like you cut this character out completely.
Like it doesn't make sense.
There must be a reason.
Because there's an instance in where something happens in the film where Rocky clearly should be at that event.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's not.
I mean, I would argue multiple moments. Like, not just in the personal life, but maybe like in the boxing. Like, you'd think somebody would ask or he'd be at the show, maybe not in the corner.
Rocky's like, he feels dead.
He feels dead, right? But no one addresses or says anything.
I don't know. Yeah, but apparently they're making another one. So
in a Drago movie.
I don't know where, really?
Yeah, so that's the plan. It's in pre-production, so who knows if we'll ever actually get there, but what's Ivan's son's name? Is he also? Oh, a Drago baby. A baby Drago.
Baby Drago?
Yeah. How to Get Away with Murder. That's not what I was thinking. How to Train Your Drago. That's the name of the movie. How to Train Your Drago. That's the...
What was it? I did like that aspect of the film. Kind of like how, mirroring the Creed and Rocky.
Yeah.
Training together. And how...
the world building.
Yeah.
The next generation.
I do really like that. Although I will say for this film, what was it? I was a little surprised by the brevity of it.
Yes, the narrative came and went.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely, I think I definitely took some good themes out of it though, which I guess is like the basis for this episode.
Yeah.
I think even before the film even came out, I saw the trailer, and there was obviously the trailer showed like some of the best parts of the film. They have the trailer music, which for some reason trailer music just always hits, you know?
Yeah.
And then you never really get that in the even though the music I think in the film was
We're looking at you, Suicide Squad.
Yeah. But there's a line in the film where his coach basically tells Adonis, because obviously like Adonis is like facing like his past, basically a physical representation of his past, and some things that he did before back then. But he says this line where it's like you need to like let go of what was and step into what is.
Yes.
And just like, and that for me, when I saw that trailer, in theaters, and like just that line, I guess maybe it was at that certain point in my life what was going on or what is going on. It just resonated with me, and it's something that just like it stuck with me, and I was like, I'm gonna enjoy this movie.
And it resonated with me too. That like when I saw that trailer, I was like, we gotta kick Lincoln Dan off the show, and we just gotta take over it.
And look what happened.
That's what we're doing. That's not what's happening.
Sometimes you just gotta sprint to action.
Yeah, but honestly, we saw that trailer, and we're like, we know what we're gonna talk about before we even saw this movie. It kind of harkens back to another Michael B. Jordan movie, not his movie, but he's in it. Like Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. You knew like what the themes were, and we kind of knew what we were going to be talking about before we even saw the movie.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what like Creed 3 was for us. So what are we talking about then?
I think one of the, for some reason, for 2023, I think, and I mean, this could happen at the beginning of every year, but one of the big themes that I've that's just kind of been reoccurring that I've been, been talking to like a lot of different people about, that this common phrase just keeps coming up, is leveling up.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I associate that obviously with like progressing and moving forward in life, but also um, moving forward from things that held you back before, and like
Yeah.
kind of getting to a different level in life, whatever. And that's personal for everybody. You could chase your own goals, but as long as like you're making progress towards that, and I think obviously we I mean, for the most part, people try to do that in the ways that
I
they
don't know.
know
Do
how.
they? Do you
I
think
feel
that?
like people like there's a semblance of like I want to be better at this. Maybe they're not as intentional in taking the steps forward that.
Yeah.
But like I said, I mean, I don't want to generalize, but I think it kind of feels like you people work towards something.
And I feel like this generation is a lot better with this. And I mean, anyone living in, this time period, doesn't matter if you're in your 20s or in your 30s or 40s. Like, I think that is kind of like the cultural conversation. I think maybe in generations past, that's not the example we were given. I feel like there was more of a monotony, more of a like reach a point, stay there, like rinse and repeat. And maybe that's just me, but that's kind of what I saw around me.
Oh no, definitely, I agree. I mean, I think it's a generational thing. I think how people grow up, and then how that generation teaches the next generation, like who comes after them.
Yeah.
Um, I also think there's more access to information,
Yeah.
and just people are realizing that, hey, um, you don't really need. Maybe you didn't have the resources when you were younger, as
Yeah.
far as like as someone like me, where I mean, we're relatively like we're not that far
Yeah.
apart, but um, as far as like someone growing up now,
Mm-hmm.
who has the world at like the tip of the fingertips, like
Yeah.
you can learn how to like make something, you can learn how to fix a problem, you can learn how to solve a problem by just like googling something, YouTube something, like reading up on it.
Yeah.
And that enables people to not necessarily have to wait for either school or being taught that at home or something like that. And I think that it's just people more like, if you have a desire, it's easier to like achieve it, in the terms of like you have resources to help you out,
Yeah.
that you don't have to necessarily like pay loads of money for, or go out of your way. Like honestly, it's in your computer, it's on your phone, it's
Mhm.
very accessible. And I think that has allowed people more, at least especially younger people, more freedom to be like more creative with how they spend their time.
Yeah.
um and so going back to what we were talking about, I think for the most part, at least nowadays, there's like this whole thing about motivation, like follow your dreams, chase your goals, like, and kind of like this grind set, this
Yeah.
mindset to grind.
Mindset.
Um, and I think obviously there's pros and cons to everything,
I
but
think that's the double-edged sword of it. When you have the solution to everything at your fingertips, you want to solve everything.
exactly, and then you make problems. There's problems that you're making, things that weren't there before that are now, because it's like you kind of made it yourself.
Right.
Um, but yeah, the common theme I think has been leveling up and just making intentional steps to progress forward in life, whatever that looks like for everybody. Everybody's different. Um, but one of the things that I've been hearing a lot is people just don't want to stay stagnant. I
Mm-hmm.
think along with like chasing something, I also think that sometimes the monotony of life does catch up to us, in the sense of like we get stuck in a lull where we're just doing the same thing over and over again, but we're
Yeah.
not really like moving towards something, It's kind of like we're moving, but it's like we're staying in the same plane, we're staying in the same direction. um that can be kind of a trap. I mean, there's certain things about monotony that I think for me personally um are peaceful and are calming, like to have structure,
I think
consistency,
routine.
routine.
That's
Yeah,
super important for
routine
me.
helps.
It's important for my mental health above
Exactly.
all
Yeah.
things. But I think that's different than monotony. I think even those routines need to be refreshed, and they need to be purposeful. I think monotony is repetition for the sake of repetition, and routine is repetition with purpose. You know, I think,
Okay.
yeah, I think if you're going through the motions, and part of it is utility, part of it is like, for example, you wake up and you go to the gym, right? That's never gonna stop being purposeful, right? But it may become monotonous if your perspective, if your mind and your heart isn't into it. then sure, you're still going to have utility to it, but it begins to bog you down psychologically and mentally. And you need to find new purposes, even in the routines that benefit us.
No, I agree. And I guess because monotony, I guess, has like a negative connotation to it. Like it's boring, it's dragging
I mean, I
along.
think it is though. I agree. I do think it is
Yeah.
negative. I think if you've reached monotony in your routines, it's time to rethink.
Mm-hmm.
You know, realign, refocus. You know, I mean, I've experienced that in my career. I'm not gonna lie. I go through phases where it's like, why am I even doing this? Why am I still doing it? And I'm kind of like just going through the motions. It doesn't mean that I like forego my responsibilities or I do a bad job, but I don't do the best at it. And sometimes that happens even here with the show. Sometimes that happens with my relationships with friends and family. You're not at it 100%,
Yeah.
but you have to catch yourself and you have to be like, okay, what's going on here? What's working, what's not working, and why?
Yeah, I've found that, especially like, going to school, being like in the educational system, then going out of it and starting to work, and now being back in it at a higher level.
Yeah.
It's crazy how different a lot of things are, but it's also interesting to see how similar it is to be.
How so?
As far as like when I graduated from my undergraduate with my undergraduate degree, and I started to work, I realized there was time that I guess I didn't have before, because usually it'd just be studying
Yeah.
for an exam or doing homework or doing assignments. And I realized like getting out of like having a job, like obviously that takes most of your day. You're at a location for a certain amount of time, and then you go home and it's like, I don't have homework due tomorrow or tonight
Yeah.
or something to study for. And
It took me a couple of years in my profession to
Yeah.
get to there because I did have a ton of homework. But yes, it gets to the point where you're like,
I mean, it was different. I was working for a hospital system,
Yeah.
and I really wasn't, I didn't have to study for anything, and it kind of just became, what can I fill my time with?
mm-hmm.
And that's where I was able to find, like, what kind of activities do you like to do? And I mean, once the pandemic started, I just played an unhealthy amount of video games. But before that, when I was working, it was like I found, passions for running, for exercising, obviously soccer, and then doing a lot of things outdoors, especially where I was living. It was different from, being down here in Miami. I was in Tennessee.
Yeah.
But I realized that the structure that I had, from having exams, tests, and study, I kind of, in a weird way, I appreciated it after a while. Once, because I had so much, like, basically like free time, that I was like, I don't have to study. What am I doing now with my time that's serving me? For a long time, it was kind of just like, get up, go to work, go home. At some point, go to the gym either in the morning and the afternoon, and then watch TV, go to bed. And that was my life for months, to the point where I was like, I didn't feel like I was like working, like building towards something.
Yeah. Well, what's that next level?
Yeah, like where am I going next? And I think, and obviously, like, I had the grander goal was to get into PT school, but that was still a while away. I had to get my hours and stuff like that. So in a way, I was working towards something, but when I was in it, it didn't feel like that.
Yeah.
When you're a year away from something, or it's like a long period of time that you're gonna have to
Right.
be in that, you kind of lose sight of it a bit.
Yeah.
Where sometimes you kind of just have to remind yourself of that. But
Yeah.
now that, like, I'm back towards, like, I'm in PT school, and like it is a grind. It is like I have to constantly be on my toes. I can't really like slack off, like necessarily, like I don't have as much free time like I used to,
Yeah.
And I've learned that, I've had to like fill my time with things that are, beneficial and like help me progress in life, instead of just, for me, I guess, I mean, everyone else can do what they want, but I realized that a lot of it I was spending just, on passive activities, like watching television or playing games and stuff like that.
Oh, don't tell them to stop doing that.
No. I think
all our listeners.
No, I think everything.
Viewers.
I think everything in moderation. I think life requires a balance.
Yeah, absolutely.
I personally, I feel like I wasn't great with my time management, where I was just, and I'm still working on, but for the most part, I was just, letting things just happen, and I was like, you know what? And it didn't, like, the pandemic didn't help either.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was a lot of it was a weird time.
It's funny because you're talking about your experience, and it feels like you're just like telling me back my experience. I talked about those first couple of years you do have homework, as a teacher and as an educator, and then once you get the hang of it, and once you figure out how to do it all and leave it behind in the classroom, some teachers never do that, which is like good and bad. I mean, it's mostly bad. I think you should come up with a system so you don't have to take work with you. But then the trap is that, like, what do I do with all my free time? And then it becomes doldrums. Like, it just becomes routine, and like then you don't feel challenged even when you're at work, because you're like, I know how to do this. You can do it on cruise control. And then, like, where's the next phase? Like, what is the next goal set? Once you've mastered something, that temptation to be like, I did it. That's it. So I'm just gonna do this same way, and just, I don't want to say cash in a paycheck, because you're still doing the work,
Yeah.
But I think human nature is to want to constantly evolve and grow. If you're standing still, I think personally you're dying. If you're not growing, if you're not moving forward, you're taking steps back because the world is moving forward without you. And I think at a much more rapid pace nowadays.
In a sense, like, you are dying. Like where time
Mhm.
continues to, like, grow, like, it wears you down.
Yeah.
And in a sense, it's like, if you're not, living your life to the fullest, if you're not doing the most that you can, or like doing what you like to do, then in a sense you are letting, like, life kind of pass you by.
Yeah.
And one of the things, like you were saying, like how sometimes you do need, like, a reset, like sometimes you need to, like, shake things up. One of the things that I found that really just that helps me in so many different aspects is traveling,
Yeah.
and having a trip to look forward to, having something to look forward to, people that you care about, even by yourself. Um, I've known that in some of the hardest times in my life, I've decided to take trips to places, to either new places or familiar places.
Well, that's what Link's been doing for like over a month now at this point.
He's
He
gonna come
literally
back with such mental clarity.
Yeah, he literally only flies in to record an episode and then flies right
Back
out.
out.
Yeah.
That's right. He's gone. No, I found that traveling is obviously, traveling is the best, is the greatest teacher. But I think for me, man, when I get back from like, especially if I'm going through something, either emotional, in my life, or just like a different, like, just a weird time in my life,
Yeah.
and taking a trip, I find that it clears my head. And some of the hardest points in my life, I've randomly just taken trips to. If I can't, obviously, the more convenient is obviously here in the States.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to, like, travel internationally, but with time constraints
In this economy
and responsibilities, if you want to do it, you find a way.
I mean, yeah. But it still costs a
lot. Like, taking trips to, for me, it's been like, kind of like 9 day. Like, on the one half, it's like big metropolitan cities.
Yeah.
Especially the ones I'm not too familiar with. I remember one time I went to Chicago just by myself. I got an Airbnb, like, in the city downtown, and just went to museums, explored, ate a bunch of great food,
Mm-hmm.
and just, like, interacted with total strangers at a place, and just having conversations, and just talking to other people. You never really know what people are going through, and people are just really interesting.
Yeah.
And you find out a lot about people. And for me, I feel like I get that a lot in metropolitan. You can find that anywhere, but in metropolitan areas, there's so many people condensed into one, like, a not necessarily small place, but
Yeah.
compared to the people that, like, that live there, and then the space that there is, it's a lot of people. Like New York. Like, New York's very, like, crowded. And this last time I went to New York, it was also a time where I was, like, going through a lot of stress mentally with school and a lot of other things in life. And going to New York, and seeing, like, familiar faces, old friends, and meeting new people, eating delicious food, um you know seeing some new sights, and exploring just the city that I love very much, that there's always something new to explore and find, really changed my outlook on life, my mentality, and the way that I approach things. Like, I don't want to be, like, dramatic, but in a sense, like, it kind of changed a big aspect, the way, like, my perspective.
Mm-hmm.
It shifted my perspective, and I realized that there's so much kind of to do, and to dwell on things like the past wastes your time.
Yeah.
And I think the key word is dwelling. I think you can look back on the past and learn from it. I think that's important. But to stay stuck in the past and to be like, oh, I should have done this better, I could have done this better. It's like, yeah, you could have, should have, would have, but like you're here now.
Yeah.
And that's one of the big things that I found recently in my life is like I used to be so caught up in like mistakes that I made before and just having so much anxiety and worrying about what's going to come next, about the future, that I'm not even there, that it's like I completely forget about the now. Being in the moment is something that I wasn't thinking about. And that to me was my trap, because if I'm too focused on the past or the future, my presence in the now was literally just going through the motions.
Yeah.
I was reverting back to, hardwire my routine, my habits, which aren't necessarily all healthy. That it was kind of like I was doing the same thing over and over again. And, when life, kind of hits you and smacks you in the face, you use like what you're used to cope, you know, and not necessarily all that is healthy. And I like that some of the things that I've, been experiencing recently have taught me, just changed my perspective and taught me that I can't really, I can't change the past, and I'm not in the future. I'm not there yet. And if I was, then I would do so many things differently, but I'm not. I don't have that ability. I don't have that power. And I've been just trying to like really process and understand the importance of being in the moment and really utilizing that to the fullest. And so that you can use the mistakes from the past or whatever happened in the past to educate your now so that you can set yourself up for success in the future.
Yeah.
And that's the mentality that I've been trying to go. That's for me, that's what I guess leveling up has been. That's the progress that I'm making towards so far in this new year, because I know people like to start new things, resolutions and things in the
That's
new
right.
year.
From January all the way to June. We're going to keep talking about the new year.
Yeah. But on the flip side of that, I also think it doesn't have to be, January 1st for you to make changes or like extreme changes in your life, or just even small changes too. I think it can happen at any point. You okay?
Yeah. I'm trying to do the like cough off mic thing, and then I remember like, oh, we're on video now, so it's like kind of cough off cam. Yeah.
No, but I think like for me, that's where I've been recently. It's just trying to be intentional now in the moment and not really dwelling on things that happened before, because you can get stuck there and life will pass you by.
Yeah. Before you know it, you're writing Rocky 8, 12, 15, and 72 instead of moving forward into the Creed era of your life, right?
That's true.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought up the being in the moment, because I was just about to say, we spend a lot of time talking about moving on, right? On what the next phase is, right? And sometimes leveling up is that understanding where you are now and finding meaning and purpose in that place. How do you find meaning where you are now? Not preoccupying yourself on where you want to be or what's next, but in that, living in the moment.
How do I find meaning in living in the moment?
And maybe that means how do you individually, or it's like how do we collectively?
Yeah. I think it's just about, being honest with yourself. Being honest with yourself in the sense
that's the
of
hardest thing. I'm sorry, I don't like that.
It is hard.
That's not a good answer.
It is hard. It's being honest with yourself and what you want, and what your goals are, and like really like either write. For me, I have to write things down, either to remember or just I'm just a visual person that just like having that, like seeing that in front of me. Knowing what your goals are, knowing what you're working towards, knowing your why. Why do you like? What's your MO? What gets you out of bed in the morning? Like, why are you doing this? Why are you living? Like, what are you chasing?
For me, it's my wife, both figuratively and literally. She gives me the strength, but also literally pulls the sheets out from under me. Now, I actually have this routine where when I hear the flush of the bathroom, it's like, all right, now I'm late. Like, I know that this is the get up. Those are the days we don't get up early.
Yeah.
In, the gym. So, and then I think it's the other way around too, because when we do go to the gym, it's literally me dragging. You have to get up now. It's too late. We're late. You have to get up now. But yeah, what is that purpose? What is that? Sometimes we find that in another person, but that's limited because that can only take you so far. You need to find intrinsic, Like you need to find, and sometimes it's outside of ourselves, but it also goes inside of yourself because it has to be self-motivating. You can't depend on other people. Although the systems that we have, our friendships, our family, you know, they push us into that direction. But ultimately, that step it has to be yours. You have to take
No,
the step.
exactly. And I think there's a lot that we don't necessarily give ourselves credit for. Is like we have a lot more power than we think, especially like mentally. Like we might necessarily like we don't want to get out of bed in the morning, or we don't necessarily want to do this responsibility that we have. But that's just that's just a thought pattern that for me personally, like once that thought gets in my head, if I don't shut it down immediately, I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna lose. And it's a daily thing because you can be feeling one way, you can be feeling on top of the world, you can be riding this high. You go to bed, you wake up in the morning, brand new slate.
Yeah.
And this could last weeks, this could have days, months, whatever.
Do you have bad days or do you have bad weeks?
I wouldn't necessarily say bad. I think days. I wouldn't say bad days. I just think, every day's a good day. Just bad things happen sometimes.
Okay. Yeah. But those days for me, when I think of like a bad day or a bad week, for me it's weeks.
Yeah.
It's when you lack the motivation. Usually it's because I've what's the word? I lost attention to or not abandoned, but neglected. I've neglected some critical aspect of myself, whether it be sleep or spirituality. Well, that was a weird way I said that. Spirituality or any of those things that kind of like energize me.
Yeah.
If I start the week off or at some point in the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, it's just my whole week is shot. Like now I have to just survive till Saturday or Sunday and then get a reset. Then depending on how packed my weekend is, because I fall into a pattern.
I will say that I think the biggest one for me is sleep. And I've noticed that with school, the way that my schedule is this term, it's like first Monday, Tuesday, I'm pretty chill. I only have a class in the morning, and then I'm pretty much free the afternoon. Tuesday, I have no class. Come Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, it's a nonstop grind. I'm in class basically 12 hours.
Yeah.
Like every single day, except for Friday. But it's like for me, like going from 8 a.m. to like 6 p.m. for 2 days straight is a lot. And by the time like Friday, I have another 8 a.m. on Friday, and then I'm out like in the afternoon on Fridays. But like the weekends are huge for me now.
Right.
And so I will say that for me, sleep, if I don't get sleep, and I haven't been the greatest like growing up. I've always like
I was the worst.
Kind of going to bed, going to bed late, but my body is always gonna wake up early, no matter what. And it affects me. It affects my mood. It affects.
I was the opposite. I always go to sleep
activity.
late and always wake up late.
Yeah.
And now recently in my adult life, I've kind of reset that through like habitual routine.
Yeah. That's something that it's like you have to know yourself, and it's different for everybody. You have to know yourself. But I think generally speaking, for everyone, sleep is extremely important.
Yeah.
And for me, if I don't get good sleep, it will throw me off for the days. But I think that because it used to be like that, where like I would just think, oh, the rest of this week is gonna suck, But and sometimes there are those moments where I just need to get to this day and I'll be fine. I know like when midterms come, when final exams come for me, those are like it's a race. It's like an endurance race.
Yeah. By the way, this is the part of the season. The producer Dan, if you could check the little box that says life and lifestyle, health and fitness. Yeah, you can put that in the categories, right? So I think this qualifies.
It's a level up right there.
Yeah, we're leveling up. Let's get those that data cross checking, get those into more people's feeds. But also you mentioned PT school. Just for the record, for anyone who's not familiar with that, you're training to be a Praetorian Guard, right?
Yes,
like for the Emperor.
Yeah, I'm in my red suit with my spear and everything.
Okay. Yeah.
No, we were talking about kind of what helps you stay in the moment. I also think it's a belief system.
Oh yeah,
I think that's extremely important, and that's not necessarily to me like talking about spiritual like God or anything. Personally, that's what I subscribe to, but I think just belief in something,
Yeah, I think we all believe in something.
Yeah.
Right? There's something pushes us forward or motivates us, and it's either in belief or disbelief or something. There's got to be a reason, a goal set, right? Whether that's money, whether it's prestige, whether it's, I don't know, it's gonna make me happy, whatever it is, like you gotta believe that what you're doing is getting you somewhere. Otherwise, I don't really see in human experience like what would make you chase after anything, really.
Yeah. And that goes back to, you know, being honest with yourself, because there's been times where like I said, I'm going through the motions, and something happens where like I come to a point where like I try to do some introspection. I'm just like, why do I feel this way? Why do I feel like I'm just like a zombie doing the same thing over and over again, or like a robot? And like, I go back and I look, and oftentimes it's like I lost connection with that part, like my belief system. I don't really know what I'm working towards, and it seems that's what makes my life feel kind of empty. In the sense, you can have great friends, you can have all that stuff, but it has to be something internal. Like you said, it could be something external that comes inside of you, but at some point
you have to internalize it.
Yeah, it is something that it's like you have to make a choice whether you're going to progress with this, whether you want it, or you decide like you want to pursue this, you want this to be a part of your life. Because if you don't, then it's like, what's the point?
Yeah, like the McGuffin's written into the script, and everybody can choose a different one. Yeah. But at the end of the day, why does the character want it? What is motivating them to pursue it? If you don't internalize that as a character, then you serve no purpose in the story of your life.
Exactly. And I feel like a lot of people could just get caught up in like, the worst things that go on in their life. And I mean, to no degree am I saying like, just rub some dirt in it and get over it, and like pick on up and get over it.
Why would you rub some dirt in it? That would cause an infection.
Yeah, well, that's the saying. I don't know. Right? That's the thing, right?
Yeah, I don't know. This is the first I've heard of it. Rub some dirt.
If you get like hurt or something, and you just like rub some dirt in it and just get up and
I've never heard that before in my life.
There's no way you haven't. It's been in many TV shows and films.
Rub some dirt in it.
Yeah.
That sounds like really bad advice.
It is bad advice.
Okay, but so why is everybody giving it?
I don't know.
Rub some dirt. Is that a thing that they once did, like historically?
No, I don't know.
We gotta look it up. Yeah, that's weird. Is it weird that I haven't heard? I must have, right?
You had to.
Okay, can you name one specific like reference, or where have you heard
a specific reference? Man,
yeah.
You're really putting me on the spot here.
All right, if you guys know, meaning you Google it, please put it in the comments. I don't know where do they?
I'll Google it at some point.
Okay. Anyway,
but it's just like, just get on with it, get over it. Like I'm not saying like, because everyone goes through
right. That's bad advice too, right? Yeah.
Everyone's going through
on this health podcast.
Different.
Do not rub dirt into your open wounds. Continue.
Everyone's going through. Everyone goes through terrible things in their life, and everyone has the right to deal with it, grieve it,
right.
Process it as they know
deal
how.
With their trauma.
Exactly. Right. But I know, like for me, aside from like this, whole change of perspective, I used to just live in. I used to sulk and I used to dwell and I used to just. That consumed me.
Yeah.
And it could be weeks after whatever happened, months after whatever happened, and I'm still living there.
Right.
My head is still there. Everything has moved on, but it's like I'm still there.
Yeah. And it's you can't shape your identity around.
Yeah, but
these things.
If that's what you're focusing your attention is on all the time, if you're constantly dwelling on that, it's like form follows function. That's what's gonna come out of you. That's like if you're inputting, then that's what you're thinking. That's what like it's gonna come out of you. Like that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And that's what I've learned about, not staying back there, not staying in the past, because it's like life is literally passing you by.
Yeah.
And I think as long as you take steps to like, you want to progress, you want to move forward, you want to move on from whatever happened in the correct way, whatever the correct way is.
Yeah.
It's different for everybody. But, healing and learning from certain situations, and I think moving forward has greatly helped me, because there's times where it seems like the world is ending, everything's hopeless. What's the point? And
it literally was just a few months ago, like a couple of years, 12, 24 months ago, the world was ending.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, we were shut down and you weren't allowed to go out.
But even in times like
apocalyptic,
even in times like that, I feel like a lot of people had the time to reflect
Yeah.
and to really like, find out what you're made out of and who you are as a person and
Yeah.
what you want out of life. Because I think if you don't know that, and it's like if you're not actively looking for that, it really is it really life could just pass you by.
My thinking has evolved in regards to this. You always hear like you can't make yourself a victim, right? And I've always like brushed up against that. Like, but there's some people who are victims. There's people who have been victimized. And
Yeah.
if you go around telling everybody that, they can't be a victim, like it doesn't ring true for those people who have truly suffered. But I think something I heard recently was that you can't see yourself as a victim. Your mindset can't be that of a victim. You can understand that you were victimized. You can understand that that you suffered. You can understand that you went through trauma, but you can't stay with that mindset. You have to know where you've been and like we're talking about, move forward and move on. And not moving on because you're never going to like really forget it in many cases. Sometimes, we have that opportunity, but just understanding that, like you said, your thoughts breed actions and your actions create the reality that you live in. Moving on involves leaving things behind. What are some things that you've had to leave behind in your life?
Um, I'd say friendships, relationships. Um,
And that was like a hard one, right? Because it's like,
for me, that's hard. I'm an only child, so for me, like I grew up with you guys, and you guys like basically like my siblings, and I'm so appreciative of that. But for a lot of times,
I
I was
really hard. Thank you.
I would thank you. I was by myself, and so for me, like the friends that I make, I treat them like my close friends. They're like my brothers and my sisters,
Right.
And I'm just in those regards, like I'm very genuine. I'm very like kind and considerate with anyone that I meet. But like if you're my friend and I give you my trust and I give you my friendship, like I care for you a lot. And I think one of the hard things in life, I think, is realizing that not everyone's meant to be there your whole life.
Okay. Wow. That's actually profound.
Yeah, I mean, because there's been instances where I've had friendships that have ended, and like I've tried making, amends, and the other people just didn't want to.
Right.
Or there's been instances where I've realized that, you know, this this friendship or relationship is, I guess, more detrimental
Yeah.
than it is than moving on, and sometimes you just have to make hard decisions. But it's for me, I would take it more personally when the decision was made, when I didn't make the decision, when it was made for me.
It's obviously much better when you make the decision. Screw them.
Yeah. But it's hard because it's like, why don't you want to like pursue this? Why don't you want to be my friend anymore? Why don't you want and that's why I really like the Banshees of Inisherin.
Yes. That's a great.
I think that story is like the concept, like if you tell someone the premise of it, it's like, what? Sounds so stupid.
Yeah.
In a sense. But I think the way that they presented it, and obviously it's funny and the actors are phenomenal. I think that the writing is very well done. But at the base, it's someone that just doesn't feel that this friendship is worth pursuing anymore because it's not servicing their life.
Right.
And this other person can't deal.
Right. And that's such a blunt example of it, but sometimes it's not even that complex. Sometimes our lives just go in different directions and there's no hard feelings. Like sometimes it's just you don't even notice when it happens. But someone that you were shoulder to shoulder, brothers in arms, they're just no longer in your life. And you just kind of move on. It's funny that you said that some people aren't meant to be in your life forever. Because I kind of live by a creed that I don't even know if I'm right, to be honest with you. But it's something that's rung true in my life, that people are for a chapter. And if you live your life in phases, many times they can be critically important now, and you'll basically be strangers later. And I'm not saying that applies to everyone, but most people in your life, I think it does. Maybe I'll change my mind, in 10 years, but relationships that felt like forever, they're just not in my life. And most of the time it's not a big falling out or anything like that. Most of that it's just time and distance.
Yeah, time passes.
Geography. We have more and more ways to stay connected than ever, but the reality is that our lives are so busy, and perhaps that's something to evaluate. But if you're living now in the moment, it's hard to service relationships with the past. And me personally, I don't think that that's that bad. I think if the connection's there, it'll maintain, and you'll always be connected in a
Oh
way,
yeah, for sure.
existentially. But you can only give of your time so much.
Yeah, no, I agree. Cause I mean, for example, when I was living in Tennessee, when I went to undergrad there, and I also lived there after working there. My main group of friends was there,
Hmm.
you know, and I had a big group of friends that we would hang out all the time. We all do stuff. Um, and then little by little, people graduated different points of life. They
Yeah,
moved throughout different. And then I moved, and now all my closest friends are all in different parts. They're all in different parts of the world,
yeah,
and the people that are meant to stay in your life, they will, and you will make it. Like, you'll make an effort, and sometimes people will reciprocate, and sometimes people won't. And I think at the crux of it, I think is really understanding that it's okay,
yeah,
no matter like if they do reciprocate or if they don't.
yeah.
It's fine. I learned like not to take things personally. In a lot of situations, because that was something that I had struggled with. I would just take things personally. I would think a lot of things were just my fault. People just didn't want to be friends
Yeah.
with me because of who I am or did something wrong.
Oh, I think
Um,
that all the time. I
yeah,
think that when in the very chat where we like plan this show, like when I don't get a response right away, I'm like they want to leave the show. They don't want to be, that kind of internal voice. It's like
yeah,
all the time. Like I'll send an email, I don't get it back in 24 hours, even though I don't respond to emails in 24 hours. But I'll be like, oh, that's it. They don't want to work,
yeah.
anymore. You brought that example. You went off to school, right, and you studied there, and then when you graduated, you kind of stayed for a while. What was it that drew you to what is usually a temporary experience? You didn't come back home right away. What was kind of your thought process there? What were you holding on to, or what were you waiting for to take a step forward?
I think it was I had built a life there. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously the community that I had of friends there. Um, in a sense, it was independence. I had to figure out where I was gonna live if I wanted to stay there. That was
yeah,
the first thing. And then being off on my own, not being necessarily, in student housing, like in a dorm or anything like that. Um, because it's like, what was the other option? Go back home to Miami. Because going to Tennessee was like the real like first time that I was outside of home.
hmm,
And it was like a way to like for me to be independent, for me to like learn what it's like to be on my own and not necessarily having the shelter
yeah,
of school. Um, you know, having to make money to buy groceries, to pay rent, and to do all these other things. Um, and that like there was a lot of doors that opened that it just felt like this is what's supposed to happen right now.
hmm,
Doors open where I was like, oh yeah, wow, think this worked out perfectly.
yeah,
And like I had my group of friends there, and it was just everything worked well. I ended up starting a relationship with someone, and then that was great for that time.
yeah,
And the relationship ended, and after that relationship, like I said, I take those like relationships ending pretty hard, and I thought a lot of it was my fault, and I was dwelling on that for a lot longer than I should have. So I realized that I got to get up and move forward, and I learned that like from that breakup, it kind of propelled me into the next phase of my life. To,
sometimes those chapters just kind of write themselves,
yeah,
right? Like
exactly.
this is the end.
How I said like the doors open for me to stay.
Hmm.
When that relationship ended and there was a lot of like things that I had to do, I had to go take some classes again, but they were online, and then like clockwork, it was like the doors started closing for me staying there, for me being there,
Hmm.
and the doors started opening for me to go back home.
Yeah,
And that was like the time where was like the season's over and that's that. And even it's funny that we're talking about this because that relationship, I had a friend who was basically I had learned that um my ex at the time, like they were still like they talked about how like important I was in their life in that
mm,
moment. And I helped them get through something like that was very like hard for them.
yeah,
And to me it was like, I mean, I hadn't thought about this person in a while, but it was nice to hear that like I was able to make a difference and help someone at that specific point in
yeah,
time. And that's what kind of like got me to thinking. I was like, sometimes we really are just in some people's lives to to make a difference, to help them at that like point, but it's not necessarily meant to last
Right.
forever. And that for me is just the concept of moving on has always been hard for me, because it's like once I have something and I like it and it makes me, feel good, and I'm it's enjoyable, and I feel like it is something that's good for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I want to hold on to it, and like I take it personally. It's like I try to do everything to keep it that way.
Yeah.
But what I've realized is that the more that like I act like out of fear of losing it, and the more I try to like hold on to it tighter, the less control I have, and like the more like it goes away from me.
Yeah.
And it just,
The tighter you grip your fist, the easier the sand slips through the fingers. Yeah.
and that's been the concept, is like understanding that there's seasons for everything, there's a point in time for everything, and that just because something is ending, or something is different, change comes, that's okay.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's the way it's supposed to be. And the overarching theme for me in my life right now is understanding that everything is going to be okay, everything is going to be fine at the end of it.
Yeah.
Harkening back to, was this last week's episode was talking about the Ted Lasso episode around communism.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, it doesn't matter, like it may not work out how you want it to work out, but you got to trust that everything is going to work out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think
I recently saw the Fablemans, and they have that like everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
And it's like, again, it shows it like two sides of that, because you mentioned the quote from Tenet, what is it, faith in.
Yeah, I'm gonna look that up and actually say it, because
every time we try to refer back to it.
No, because every time I look at it and I look up the quote afterwards, I'm like, man, I really wish I didn't butcher that.
So in the Fablemans, his mother talks about everything happening for a reason, and sometimes that facilitates them moving forward with their life, even if it means leaving certain things behind.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's kind of an excuse to just let things happen to you. And I think that the quote really addresses the like duality of that existential nature that we exist at.
Because even then, like in the concept, like in the context of the film about like time and like everything, like they know what's gonna happen, but you still have to do it. So the quote is, "What's happened. It's an expression of faith in the mechanics of the world, but it's not an excuse to do nothing." It's like this. I don't know. It's not really a. It's kind of paradoxical, I guess.
I think it is. Yeah.
It's like everything is gonna work out, but you still have to do your part. It's not an excuse to just sit on your butt and just like let things happen to you for you to just be a passenger in life. It's like live your life, but also trust that in doing so, everything is going to happen the way it's supposed to happen. Everything is going to work out in the end.
Right. Because, for example, I talked to someone the other day that they were like, well, it's like you could eat healthy, you can get all the sleep and water that you want, and then you can just die of a coronary randomly. You could just have a brain aneurysm. And it happens all the time. And that's absolutely true. But to me, that's not like, and lots of people like smoke and do whatever they want with their bodies, and they live to be 100, right? And it's almost like a crapshoot, right? It's a lottery, so to speak. But the reality is, I don't want to be the cause of that. I want to know that if I make the right decisions, then, everything will work out. And if it doesn't work out, then that's what's meant to work out. I can't control whether I just suddenly have a stroke for no reason, but I can control whether I have a stroke because of decisions that I made, So you can't just let everything happen to you for good or bad. Like, oh, it'll all work out, so I don't really have to do anything, because that's not really the way the universe works. But you can't expect that you can control the world in a way that your actions are going to get you the results that you're always looking for.
Mm-hmm.
It will be what will be, que será, será. But we have a role to play in that. We're part of that tapestry.
Oh no, for sure. And that's what kind of like what makes life so interesting, because it's like, if you knew that, like obviously, yeah, you have this belief that everything's going to work out, but if you just like let everything happen, then where's the enjoyment in that?
Mm-hmm.
Where's the spice of life? Where's, the point of living?
Yeah. Because I think those high points that we have in our lives, and when we feel agency, when we feel that we have accomplished something, so to speak, there's even, it's like, I don't know, 60-40 effort and luck, but to know that we put in our parts and we deserve on some level what we get, I think that brings peace. For me, it brings comfort. It's like,
Oh yeah.
you know, if I can trace back, like, oh, something bad happens, this is where I failed. But if it's not, then it's just a thing that happened. And if something good happens, and this is where I succeeded, and if not, chalk it up to, you know, to dumb luck.
Yeah. I mean,
But luck is for losers. You can't depend on it.
yeah, you make your own, you know? And and there was actually something really interesting. I was watching a actors roundtable, I think it was for the Hollywood Reporter.
Mm-hmm.
They bring like the best nominated or at least actors that had like a big year or whatever.
Right.
And they bring him down and sitting on it, and there was his name escapes me, but he's a relatively like newcomer. He's a pretty young actor. And he was saying how
Brad Pitt.
Yeah, Brad Pitt.
Okay.
He was saying how you know, I believe he was talking with his therapist, and like he was saying like, man, like there's times where like, you know, the highs feel so high but the lows feel so low, and it's like I kind of just want to be, why can't I just taper off in the middle? Like why can't I just be off in the, like in the middle? And his therapist says something along the lines of you know, like when people are in the hospital and they have the EKGs, the heart rate monitors.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you know, there's the pulses that goes up and then it goes down. But it's like if you stay in the middle, you flatline.
Yeah.
And you're dead. And it was just like, that was something that just, you know, kind of stuck with me. And it's like, it's true. That's the point of life. It's not meant to all be great, because you wouldn't be able to appreciate the good times in your life, because there are times where like it is crappy, you know. That's just how it is. That's the world we live in, and that's the reality of it. And you know, some people have, you know, had it harder, but everyone's has a different definition of hard.
Yeah.
But that's not an excuse to just, you know, kind of accept it. I think, like you said, you really gotta like understand that things in life happen, you know, for a reason. And but you can't just chalk it up to dumb luck that things just happen to you, whether it's good or bad. And there are negative stuff, but I mean, that's why I believe suffering also is a great teacher.
Yeah.
Failure is a great teacher. Some of the
Are we
hardest,
just quoting Star Wars now?
Yeah. Some of the hardest lessons I've learned have been through like really tough times, really hard times, because sometimes for me that's how the lesson gets through my head.
Yeah.
Because
I think most of us are like that.
Yeah, because to me it's like if I deal with a certain issue or deal with a certain problem the same way over and over again and I don't make any progress, it's like sometimes it's like it's gonna take something like really either shocking or something like serious for me to actually like for it to be real for me.
Mm-hmm.
For me to actually be like, whoa, either I'm staying the same way I've been my whole life or where up till now, or I'm gonna make changes and move forward. And there's actually I was listening to what is it? Tom Sawyer.
The Hook.
Tom Sawyer by Rush.
By Blues Traveler.
Blues Travelers. Tom Sawyer by Rush, and there was a line. I was looking at the lyrics. I was on Spotify. I was looking at them, and there's actually a line that I never really caught. I guess you know how like you just know songs, you know the words, but you don't actually think about them.
You don't internalize their meaning. Yeah. Like The Hook by Blues Traveler.
Yeah, like one of the lines was you know, like he's talking about the character in the song, and he's like change. He knows that changes aren't permanent, but change is. And that's something that's always going to come for you. It's like time is always changing. Time is always evolving. And it's like, you got to get with it, you know? And
time waits for no one. It passes you by.
Time waits for no man. And
is that Sinatra or who sings that?
Probably the guy that says rub some dirt in it.
Probably, right? I've never heard that before, by the way.
But yeah, it's just a part of life. And it's a part of, you know, adapting. And that's one thing I've learned that, especially being in physical therapy school, is that, you know, aside from the mind, the body, like how the body adapts to certain things happening to you. Let's say cases with stroke, or people with Parkinson's disease, or people that have traumatic brain injuries, or like injuries like the musculoskeletal system, top to bottom.
Why are you pointing to mine?
Why?
Just general area. Yeah. Okay, sorry.
It's amazing and fascinating how the body, like if you have an injury, how the body fights to protect itself and and adapts to whatever you need to do, whenever you need to do to function to get by, and how the body either heals itself, not like Wolverine, but kind of takes from different parts of the body to help you move forward, to help you like not die.
Yeah.
It's incredible the systems in place in your body to be able to adapt. And I think as people, if we can adapt to the social situations, to things in our lives, that improves the quality of life, because it's like you're kind of taking things into your own hands. When something happens to you, yeah, it happens to you, but you don't necessarily have to like stay down. Like if life knocks you down, you don't have to stay down. You can get up and move forward, and you got to make that choice.
Yeah. That's a hard choice. I asked you earlier about leaving and coming back because, my experience was different. I've never been anchored to where I was, except for maybe season 1 of the show when we were on Anchor. But I I've always been open to moving forward, moving on, moving away. Um, but the hook brings you back, actually. Um, like you said, doors opening and opportunities, and they've always, in a sense, from one perspective, seemed to have kept me in my place. I've lived, obviously I was born and lived a couple of years in New York, but for the most part, all of my adolescent, developing, and adult life has been here, in Miami. And I went to school here. My career was here. I started a family here, bought my first home here. And I was talking to a coworker who was asking me about that because they've lived all over. They've done nothing but travel their whole lives, like to a new destination, start a life, pick up and go, And they were like, "How is that? How is living in one place? Like I can't wrap my head around it." And it's funny because I hadn't really thought about it because they were like, "Oh, you must really like it here?" And I was like, "No, I hate Miami. I can't stand the culture. Apologies, Miami. I love you. You have your own way." But really, it's not my vibe per se. On some level, obviously, it's like almost the only thing I know in reality. So it's like I love it too. Like all jokes aside, but I can't stand the traffic. I am not into what like the hot things to do in the area. I've kind of had to make my own way about it. But, I've always been drawn to the friends and the family that have kind of defined my existence here. And it's just that I've always been open to go somewhere else, and it just hasn't happened for me. And I think that's what's interesting, that whether it's that you're called out to go somewhere else, which is a scary step to take. And I think you did that on like a whim, if I remember correctly, right? The first time you left home.
Yeah, I didn't know. I was going to school and I didn't know how I was going to pay for it. I packed my bags and left. And then, on the way there, I was told, "Hey, you're going to receive funds." And that's the thing, doors open.
Yeah. And I remember when that happened, everyone was like, "Yeah, he's not gonna go because he doesn't have a way." And I remember telling them, "He's gonna go. He's gonna go." And I'm not sure if you knew you were gonna go.
No, the night before, I was supposed to, the night before my ride was leaving to Tennessee, I wasn't gonna go because I'd spoken to my parents about it, and financially, like, there were certain things that happened that I couldn't go. Certain like loans and awards and stuff like that. And
Charges of embezzlement that you were going through at the time, they were all dropped.
That's what's keeping me tied here.
Racketeering.
But like and I was upset because it was something I really wanted to do.
What, racketeering?
That's for the
The Patreon?
The Patreon.
Sure, okay.
I thought I started with an E.
Yeah. Also, Dan, cut a Patreon episode. We need to upload those. Speaking of racketeering, I'm sorry for the aside, but isn't that a weird word? Racketeering. Does it sound like you're part of like tennis sports or something?
A racketeer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Not to be confused with Rocketeer.
Rocketeering is that's an excellent movie. Joe Johnston, first Avenger.
Joe Johnston.
Continue.
So yeah, like I was about to go to bed, and I was upset, man, because it was been kind of weeks since I was like planning this and wanting to go.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't working out. Like, to me, I thought the doors were closing, the doors weren't opening. And then as I'm going to bed, I get a call from, my dad, and my dad just basically just like, he said, my dad was the one that was kind of like, "Yeah, if this doesn't happen, then it doesn't work. We can't do it. I'm sorry." And it didn't happen. And my dad basically, I called him earlier, he didn't answer. And I was like, "You know what? I'm going to go to bed, and it is what it is."
Yeah.
And he called me up right as I was falling asleep, and it's actually funny. Right as I was falling asleep, he calls me and he's like, "Go." we'll figure it out. Just go. If that's what you want to do,
Sometimes you have to take a step
you want to go. And
in faith.
you want to know the funny part? It's just
To the
actually,
mechanics of the universe. Yeah.
it's actually crazy how the full circle this is. That's all he had to tell me. I got up. I got a bag. I got my biggest suitcase. I started packing my clothes, and I turned on the TV. Guess what was playing on the TV?
Hook by Blues Traveler.
No.
Oh.
Rocky.
No way.
Yeah. Rocky.
That does ring it full circle. How perfect is that?
Rocky 1. Rocky 1 was on the TV, and
I promise I did not know that.
And I just remember the movie had just started. And the song's going on, and that's what kept me up. It was like 2 a.m, and I'm just like packing my bags. And then the movie ends. I finish packing. I go to bed. Next morning, I get up, and then I go to my friend's house that was gonna drive, not knowing how I was gonna pay to go to this private school. And as I'm putting my stuff in the trunk, and as I'm getting in the car, I get a call, and the person basically said, like, I get a call from a benefactor that's basically like, yeah, just I'm sorry, like I wasn't able to get you to you sooner. Just tell me where to send the money to, and I'll send it. And I was like, oh, like how much do you think you can help me out with? And they're like, all of it, however much you need.
That's amazing.
And I went, and I was on my way, and that defined my life for the next 5 years. And I made incredible friendships, lasting friendships that I still get together with. Like, because in that sense, I may have left Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
I went home, and everyone kind of went their separate ways to live their lives. Some people stayed, some people left. But the people that that I care about, the people that not that I don't care about the people, but
No, you don't care about that.
the people that like
Only the
are
people that you
closest,
care
and I try to like maintain those connections with. I may not speak to them day to day. I may not speak to them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever I see them, because that's what we try to do. We try to like either plan a trip for somebody's birthday, or a cruise, or something like that.
Yeah.
Once a year or twice a year, and we get everybody together, and we travel together. And that's something that's a huge role in my life, and that's something that I get excited for, and something that I look forward to, and that it pushes me, to work hard, and so that I can spend the time, that enjoyment with them. And when I see them on these trips, it's like no time has passed by since we last seen each other.
Yeah.
The connection is still there, that because these people want to be in your life, these people still care, like these people care about you, and it's a beautiful thing, when you have that circle. But it's also beautiful realizing that that's not going to be everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I think coming to that realization, it's like, yes, it may hurt, yes, it may sting a bit, but it really isn't necessarily personal. It's just everyone has their life to live, and sometimes people will be there for the long haul, and sometimes people won't. But know that everybody that you meet, and the people that come into contact with you in your life, and even you for them, you have a role to play. They have a role to play in your life, and they make a difference, even if it's small, even if it's just a small gesture or a compliment. Or
it doesn't
like
make
that.
it insignificant. Yeah.
Yeah. Everything amounts to something.
Mm-hmm.
in this crazy thing called life.
I think sometimes we find ourselves in chapters of our lives where we're down and out, and we end up losing by split decision. Sometimes we end up winning the upset, unbeknownst to even ourselves. And sometimes we're just forging a new chapter, looking back at each of the titles of our past and writing a new one. And for many of us, this year is an open book. It's one where we decide whether we're going to continue on in the series of our lives, or if we're going to open up and spin off onto something new. These decisions, they come and they go, and only you know when it's time to make them. But if we keep our eyes and our ears open, we can see those opportunities and those doors that open and close. And as long as we keep fighting, you can beat that 10 count. And we'll keep beating that 10 count week in and week out. We invite you to join us here on Searching for McGuffin. Till next time.
Keep on searching.